Welcome, Coleman Report Live, spring edition, Lance. There's bad weather across the country, but that's pretty good. Hey, we have a special guest, John Rossi, American banker. He's their community bank extraordinaire specialist. John, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
John, you and I have talked before. First time I've seen you. You're a veteran, so thank you for that. And I know you served overseas, and now you have a cool gig being a journalist. So thank you. The reason why we want you is you are the expert in following what is going on with the SBA budget. That's why we have you come on. What's going on?
Right now, it's still the early stages. The budget is in committee, but already there's sort of an impasse. The administration has come to the conclusion that in fiscal 2020, the 7A program will not be able to operate at zero subsidy as it has been for the past, I believe, 6 fiscal years. And
I don't understand that. I make my money in selling data. SBA loan performance is at an all-time peak performance in terms of charge-offs and delinquencies. What's causing this mess?
Well, they haven't right now. They haven't disclosed that. I guess, just very broadly speaking, they're concerned that there's going to be an uptick in problem loans, if you want to call it that, and they're very broadly speaking, but providing no sort of detail to back it up. They're citing that as the reason. They're asking for one of two things: either a $99 million appropriation, or the authority to increase some of the advance fees and some of the ongoing annual fees.
You wrote that Nydia Velasquez, the chair of the House Small Business Committee, is not too happy with this. What is her stance on the administration proposal?
She has flat out rejected the idea or the concept that SBA will need a subsidy in 2020. I think they had a hearing late last month, and I'm paraphrasing what she said towards the end, but she said that everyone knows SBA will not only not need a subsidy, but will operate at I guess we'll turn money over when all is said and done with the fiscal year. She's got a little
go ahead.
That, but she's also said she will block on the SBA budget until it turns over all of the I guess supporting documents and the SBA, et cetera. They haven't done that today, but she says at the time that my article went to press. And now he is asking, but more importantly, some of the ranking Republicans have joined her in asking for the GAO to undertake a study.
John, Lance and I have always said that the small business committees in the House and the Senate are the most bipartisan committees on the Hill. Would you agree with that assessment?
I think so. I think this demonstrates that because the ranking member, Cabot, is signed the letter with Ms. and also Republican. So the ranking members of the committee and its most important subcommittee, the question that studies have signed for the letter, they're a little bit confused, and they're asking for the same thing the Democrats are, which is for the SBA to sort of show its hand. What are the numbers? What are the estimates? Why they've come to the conclusion that they've come to.
I'm sure there's someone who's listening and has no idea what we're talking about when we say zero subsidies. Historically, over the last 20 years and maybe 1 year during the recession, SBA has operated at a zero subsidy, which means no taxpayer subsidy. The program is paid, the losses are paid by government, by borrower fees and lender fees. That's why this $99 million seems to come out of left field, especially with the performance of the portfolio.
Right. It's important to note that in the past few years, there's been no surge or uptick in non-performing loans that anyone can. Probably the opposite.
John, how do you see this being resolved?
It's hard to say right now because it's early.
I'm not going out on the limb. That's why I'm asking you.
The Democrats and Republicans on the committee are both sort of in agreement in their skepticism is important to note. But someone is going to have to climb down here because the SBA has the authority to set the subsidy level, and they're going to have to backtrack on that, or Congress is going to have to give in and agree to provide them either the money or the authority to raise fees. Right now, there's never any appetite in Congress to raise fees, so that's very that's a stretch. But right now, SBA doesn't show any hasn't shown any indication that it's willing to modify this subsidy calculation. So right now, it's at an impasse, and what that means is, unless that impasse is sort of taken care of by the end of the fiscal year at September 30th, the program theoretically would be forced to shut down again.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I see strong bipartisan support. Look, if my math is right, SBA is 0.02% of the federal budget. Creates all these jobs. It is the only bipartisan. Historically in the past, when Lance and I started this, the Republicans want to shut it down. The Republicans are all on board now because they understand zero subsidy, and I predict, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, they're just going to zero it out and say, no, we're not going to go along with SBA's recommendation. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's a fair assessment, and you have to wonder one other thing, that this is all happening while there's a vacancy. And if they had a permanent director and a strong advocate, perhaps things. And once
John,
they get the permanent director, perhaps things will.
I know you have to run. Thank you so much for your time. Please come back on in a month and give us an update if you would do that.
Thanks, John.
I'd love to.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the insights. Very good.
Have a good day, man.
That was pretty
Bob.
cool. Yes, Lance, go ahead.
One of the things I think SBA is noting is we've had 8 interest rate increases, and majority of SBA loans are on floating rates. And as those reset and the payments recalculate, which typically the payments your loan reamortizes at the end of the year, the question, I do see an uptick in the default rate, but not enough to take us away from zero subsidy.
Yeah.
Now,
you and I are predicting a recession. We're not going to say when. We're going to say there will be another recession, and maybe 23. Who knows?
but on the other hand, Bob, right now, and this is not true throughout, but the typical SBA guarantee fees and guys, this is not how you calculate it, but it works out to 2.25% of the loan. Is 3% of the guaranteed portion of the loan, which is 2.25% of the loan. Small business borrowers, they see that on the closing sheet and they're like, whoa. And you disclose it. If you had to run that up to say 2.5, it would become
$1 million loan. It's $25,000.
Yeah, well, of course, at $1 million, it ramps up at the $700,000 mark. But still, long and short of it is a significant closing cost for an SBA loan. It does not need to go up.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the other thing, the ongoing fee discussion, Bob, that affects the interest rate that a participant bank charges. Now, a lot of people don't think it does, but say it's 55 basis points now.
Right.
So if you price your SBA loan at 7.55, the bank's actually yielding 7. So
let's see what our audience thinks. Here's the question. What do you think?
I also find it quite interesting, Bob, that this is happening when we do not have a sitting administrator.
Yeah, I think those are fair numbers. I would be in the sort of category. I wouldn't be Pollyannish and say not at all. I think obviously the administration is pushing this, so I think it's sort of an issue.
No, I think it's an area of concern, Bob. I'm like you. I'm not ready to run up and down the streets and say, "Oh my gosh, it's gonna close," because it's not.
And I wish John was on, but I would disagree with him. I don't see a scenario where they're going to close down the program. I don't see any scenario where that would happen. But for those of you who said 18%, I think that's appropriate. And I have a couple follow-up polls, and I'm going to preach from the pulpit here. But let's go to this one. We ran an article yesterday about SBA did a memo of understanding with credit unions. They want to increase credit union numbers. We said only 1 in 10 credit unions do SBA lending. It's interesting, Lance. This is the same. Now I'm embellishing, but this is similar to the memo that was signed in 2015 and 2011. SBA is really pushing this. So what do you think? Do you think SBA should be pushing credit unions to increase their loan numbers?
Well, I think it's an incredible opportunity for credit unions, Bob, and an incredible opportunity for SBA to increase the amount of small business loans that get out there. But on the reverse side, they have to make sure they have the expertise to properly underwrite, close, and service, as well as liquidate those SBA loans.
Lance, as you know, a lot of our listeners are credit unions, so a lot of the credit unions said yes. And I did this on purpose because I know the ICBA and the community banks are ticked off that credit unions don't pay taxes. So that's sort of my code to stir the pot. But I think it's important to talk about this because SBA wants broader diversity of lenders, and they're really pushing the smaller loans. And SBA's position is, hey, we think the credit unions will do these smaller loans.
Well, and Bob, one area where credit unions have an opportunity to really incredibly reach a category. There are a lot of credit unions associated with Navy, Army, Marines. The fee waiver on the SBA Express loan program, the Veterans Advantage loan program, credit unions are perfectly set up to really have an impact with that.
Next question. Hey, this is sort of a teaser for our hospitality webinar in a couple of weeks. What do you think about your footprint? Do you believe in your market? Is it overheated? In other words, we're not going to do any construction. We think there's too much supply for demand. No, or we're average demand to meet supply, or we have excellent lending opportunities, or I just don't know. So I'm sort of, Lance and I try to make you think globally, and one of these things is someone comes in and wants to do a construction loan. What's your reaction? Well, look at those numbers. That's all over the board, which is consistent with our analysis.
Well, and I'm not surprised at all, Bob. The state that I live in, the area that I'm broadcasting from, Walmart, Tyson, JB Hunt, there's plenty of opportunity here, excellent lending opportunities, but you can go in other places where demand and supply are right on point, and some places where it's too hot. There's too much going on.
Yeah, and I think the purpose of this question is understand what is happening in your footprint. It's all different. Sacramento is going to be different than Miami, different than Houston, and understand what's doing that. And we address that. We get these experts on who do the heat map and say, red is bad, don't lend. Green is good, lend. So we'll be talking about it. Hey, finally, this is sort of a trick question. Not a trick question, but just we're trying to make that. Who's the chair of the Senate Small Business Committee?
We got to hear him speak at the secondary Oh, I'm sorry. I gave some.
The past chair spoke last December.
Oh, that's right. The past chair. That's correct.
We have a new chair. Let's see. For those of you who said Marco Rubio, congratulations. Nydia Velasquez is the chair of the House. James Risch is the past chair. Cory Booker is on the committee. The reason why I put this up is, look, your compensation, everyone on this call, is based upon what the government does. I encourage you, and I've said this before, and Lance and I will hammer this, is make contact with your local senators, your local congressperson. Make sure that they are on the list, that they understand when you're funding loans. The staff is very receptive. Joseph and I are going to go and meet the committee next month. And the problem with these committees is they got a bunch of young kids that they turn them over every year, so you have to constantly re-educate them. But I encourage you to do that. Let them know that you're out there, you're supporting Main Street, and you're creating employment and in their district.
Well, Bob, absolutely, and hopefully I'll get to join you in June,
Yes.
and we can visit with Senate Small Business Committee, the House Committee. We need to make sure they know that we support the SBA loan program. And one example is they keep talking about it, increasing Express to $1 million. They need to hear that that's a good idea.
Yeah. We are going to do an event for Senator Rubio in Florida, a couple lenders, and we're going to put that together. If you're in Florida, you want to be part of that, shoot me an email. We'll make sure you are part of that. So, okay, that's why we have. Question from Tiffany. I have a customer that was gifted some money towards a startup business. We obtained a copy of the gifter check and the gift letter. However, the gifter is refusing to provide the statements underlying where the money came from. What do we do?
We have to know, we have to have proof of the source of the gift. It's clear it's in the SOP, so the answer is that's not going to meet equity injection requirements in the SOP 5010-5K.
Now, we did get a follow-up from her, and she said the money was put on deposit with her institution. I believe she's a credit union, by the way. And so it was in the bank for 45 days, and then they wrote a check out of that for the franchise fees. Is that acceptable, Lance?
Well, if a small business has the money in their account for more than 60 days, then you can prove the source of the equity injection.
Yeah, I mean, that's, and I know Lance is always saying when you talk with these situations, open up the account, have them put in the,
the easiest way to protect yourself on equity injection, have them open the account early in the game, stick all the money in their business account, and then it's easy to prove.
Yeah. And again, Lance and I do not like the fact that the gifter isn't providing the statement, but if that money is in the account for 60 days, you're golden. Is that a fair assessment, Lance?
I feel comfortable with that, Bob, but I will tell you, quite often it might just require a meeting with the banker and the gifter to assure them that there's no bad intentions of asking for statements.
The reason why Lance and I keep harping on this is failure to document equity injection is the number one source of a guaranteed denial. That's why we harp on this all the time, and that's why we want to be really careful. Tiffany, thank you very much for the question. We wrote an article, and we'd like to follow these. Down, optimism's down slightly. It's still all-time highs. My theory on this is that Main Street has gotten a lot smarter. There's a lot more software tools available. But our entrepreneurs are a whole lot smarter than they were 20 years ago.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And it's the numbers last year were a little higher. I think small business owners have been through a lot, and they're kind of preparing for a slight downturn.
What I always love in these surveys is they may go, we don't know about our economy. We may be iffy on that, but I'm doing well. And that's consistent, is that no matter how the entrepreneur feels about national economy or local economy, they're going, I still have this, and I'm golden. So anyway. Well,
the great thing, Bob, you'll be hard pressed to find small business owners that are not saying, hey, it's been pretty good for a long time. I think I had a long conversation. My brother has been in the furniture business for 36 years, and he's retired. And I asked him what one of the biggest...
Manufacturer or retail?
No, retail. Ask him what one of the biggest challenges was, because I thought the furniture business was this last bastion of protection from the online sales.
From Amazon,
He said his biggest problem is, you still can't really effectively buy some furniture online, but he said you don't think about the categories like bar stools and tables and smaller furniture items. He said online sales have really had a huge impact. Anyway, I guess the point being I don't think an economic downturn hurts small business as much as this proliferation of online purchasing.
Yeah, and I always said with credit underwriters, you need to address how Amazon is going to impact your borrower, because Amazon is all out there. Anyway, that was an interesting article that we wrote. Hey, we know we pushed the regional conferences. Please do that. Oh, and Lance, congratulations. You were nominated again for the second year row of our trade association's best online training program. And you're coming to Washington, D.C., and we'll see if we win.
Yeah, I look forward to it, Bob. The SBA loan closer certification course has been a labor of love for us, and I'm excited that we are nominated again, and hopefully we'll win, guys.
Again, yeah. And we also got nominated for best sponsorship marketing event with our Coleman SBA BDO Summit, with the Government Loan Solutions being the sponsor, and we got nominated for that. So anyway, it's nice to be recognized. These are all, we all have our trade associations, and it's nice to be recognized. So Lance, I'll see you in Washington, D.C. in 2 weeks, and hopefully you get your face in the picture this year.
We're going to bring home the hardware.
There you go. Okay, a couple of webinars coming up. Yeah, there's the training. The training is ongoing. Lance is doing next week an update on credit elsewhere, 159 documentation. We're combining that conversation. And, of course, our 11th annual hospitality financing webinar. Hey, with that, thank you all for joining us. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.